Good morning, children. Today we are going to start new lesson. Lesson number 5, Indian Rivers and Water Resources, Part 1. In this video, we'll be discussing regarding the types of Indian rivers and the water resources. Before starting the video, everyone open your textbook and get ready for the video. Open page number 59. And from there onwards, the lesson starts. And now let us start the video. The drainage of India. What is the meaning of drainage here? It is nothing but the water resources. How the water will be flowing in India and how the rivers will be flowing, and that part is considered as drainage. How far the water will be moving through the rivers, that system we'll be calling it as drainage. And here the Indian drainage system is broadly divided into two categories. They are Himalayan rivers and peninsular rivers. What are Himalayan rivers? Himalayan rivers are those which are originated from glaciers, and these rivers are also be called as perennial rivers. The meaning of perennial is they continuously flow throughout the year. They won't even dry up in summer season also, and those rivers are called as perennial rivers or Himalayan rivers. And what are the peninsular rivers? The name itself is saying that peninsular part of India. The southern part of India is called peninsular part of India. And in this peninsula, what are the rivers are originated, and those rivers are called as peninsular rivers. And these rivers, they dry up in summer season. They are seasonal in flowing only in a particular season, that is in monsoon, that is rainy season. In that season only we can see a lot of water in these rivers. So the two types of river systems are there in India. Those are Himalayan rivers and peninsular rivers. Now let us discuss each type separately. Now let us discuss about the major Himalayan rivers. So what are these major Himalayan rivers? I already said these Himalayan rivers are originated from the glaciers, and they flow from there to the valleys, to some of the plain areas, and then they joins into the seas and oceans. So here we have the three important major Himalayan rivers. You can see in the picture here. So to your left side, you can see some blue color lines, that is Indus River and its tributaries. In the middle part, you can see one more blue color line with one other line, that is the Ganga River with its tributaries. And to your right side, you can see one more blue color line with a tributary, and that is the Brahmaputra River. So these are the three important major Himalayan rivers. So what are the three major Himalayan river systems, children? Indus, Ganga and Brahmaputra. Now let us discuss about each river separately. In this picture, you can see two river systems. One is Ganga and the other one is Indus. If you see this picture, to your left side, you can see a river system which is called Indus. Indus is a river which is originated in Kailash range in Tibet near Lake Manas Sarovar. And this river has originated in Tibet region, and from there through Jammu and Kashmir it enters into India. Understand, children? So from there it enters into India, and some of its tributaries are also in Pakistan region, and then it enters into Pakistan region, and from there it enters in it touches to the borders of Gujarat and then joins into Arabian Sea. You can see the Indus river system. So the main tributaries of Indus river are Jhelum, Chenab, Ravi, Beas and Satluj. These are the five important tributaries. These five rivers flows in Punjab region also. Now let us move to the other river system, that is called Ganga river system. In this picture, you can see one dark blue color line, and that is the Ganga river. This Ganga river also originated in Himalayas near Lake Manas Sarovar. So from there, some of the other glaciers have originated, and from there, this has originated and flows into India through Uttarakhand region. From there to Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, West Bengal. So, and even some of its tributaries will be flowing into Madhya Pradesh also. So, this is the one of a major river system in India, that is the river Ganga. Now let us discuss how this Ganga has originated. Ganga has twin sources. So you can see in page number 59, children, the Ganga system. The main one is the Gangotri glacier, where it is called Bhagirathi. Understand, children? So the main of the glacier is Gangotri glacier, which is called as Bhagirathi. The other one is called Satopant glacier, where it is called as Alakananda. From Gangotri glacier, one of a river system has originated, that is called as Bhagirathi. From Santopant glacier, one river system has originated, and that is called as Alakananda. And this Bhagirathi and Alakananda joins at a place called as Devaprayaga, and from there this flows as a single river called as Ganga river. Understand, children? Once again, from Gangotri glacier, Bhagirathi is the river which is originated. From Satopant glacier, Alakananda is the river which is originated. These two rivers joins together at a place called as Devaprayaga, and from there onwards this river flows as a single river which is called as Ganga river. Understand, children? And this Ganga river, some of its tributaries enters into Bay of Bengal through West Bengal region, and some of its tributaries enters even to the Bangladesh region also. Next one is Brahmaputra river, and this Brahmaputra river, it has originated in Tibet region. You can see the red color line, no children, that is completely Brahmaputra. It has originated in Chinese realms because now Tibet is in China region, and this has originated from a glacier called as Chimayongdang glacier of the Kailash range near Manas Sarovar. And from Arunachal Pradesh it enters into India, and then from India it enters into Bangladesh also. So the Brahmaputra rises from the Chimyongdang glacier near Manas Sarovar, and through Arunachal Pradesh it enters into India. If you see in page number 59 in your textbook, you can see that where it has originated, and it flows eastwards through southern Tibet and near Hotsizong. It is a place in borders of Arunachal Pradesh. It opens out into a wide navigable channel for about 640 kilometers. And from there, when it enters into Arunachal Pradesh in India, first it is called as Siang, and then it is called as Dihang, and then it enters into Assam Valley. So the Dibang and the Lohit are the two important tributaries of Brahmaputra river, and from there the river is called as Brahmaputra, and then it enters into Bangladesh. So I already said in the first lesson. So the Brahmaputra river, when it enters into Bangladesh, the Ganga river also enters, no children. These two rivers joins together, and from there the river is called as river Padma. So these are the three important Himalayan river systems. What are these three important Himalayan river systems, children? Indus, Ganga and Brahmaputra. Now let us go for the peninsular rivers. What are the peninsular rivers? The main features of peninsular rivers. So they are seasonal in nature and receives water from rainfall. Shorter and shallower course originate in Western Ghats and flow into Bay of Bengal, and some originate in highlands and flow westwards. Highlands, here it is a Deccan Plateau region. The plateau region is also called as highlands, and they flow towards westwards. These are the main features of the peninsular rivers. And what are the important peninsular rivers here? We have Narmada, Tapi, or also be called as Tapati, Godavari, Krishna, Kaveri, and Mahanadi. These six are considered as the peninsular rivers because they originated in the peninsular part of India and so called as peninsular rivers. So, what are the peninsular rivers, children? Narmada, Tapi or Tapati, Godavari, Krishna, Kaveri, and Mahanadi. Narmada and Tapati are in Gujarat and Maharashtra region. Narmada is flows even in two states, Gujarat and as well as Maharashtra. Tapati is in Maharashtra. Godavari originated in Maharashtra and flows into Telangana and Andhra Pradesh also. And Krishna also same. It originated in Maharashtra and flows through Telangana and Andhra Pradesh. Kaveri has originated in Karnataka and flows to Tamil Nadu and joins into Bay of Bengal. And next one, Mahanadi. Mahanadi has originated in Vindhya ranges and from there it flows towards Odisha and then joins into Bay of Bengal. And these rivers are divided into two categories. Those are east flowing rivers and west flowing rivers. What are the difference between east flowing and west flowing rivers? East flowing rivers are those which joins into Bay of Bengal to the east side are called as east flowing rivers, and the rivers which joins into Arabian Sea are called as west flowing rivers. Understand, children? Depending upon the topography of the land, this varies. So the rivers which joins into Bay of Bengal are called as east flowing rivers. The rivers which joins into Arabian Sea are called as west flowing rivers. In these six rivers, four rivers are the east flowing rivers and two rivers are the west flowing rivers. So, what are the four east flowing rivers? Godavari, Krishna, Kaveri, and Mahanadi. These rivers flow towards east and joins into Bay of Bengal. So, these four rivers are called east flowing rivers. And Narmada and Tapati are the west flowing rivers. They joins into Arabian Sea. Understand, children, everyone? This is very important concept. So here we have the differences between Himalayan and peninsular rivers. Himalayan rivers, perennial in nature, source of origin is glaciers, have long courses and perform intense erosion, mainly on of dendritic pattern and forms well-developed deltas. Dendritic pattern means they flow to in a snake-like a structure and they forms into deltaic areas, comparatively younger in origin. When we move to the peninsular rivers, non-perennial in nature, source of origin is from lakes, have shallower and shorter courses, combination of dendritic, trellis and rectangular pattern. In different forms, these will be moving and show graded profile. So, these are the differences between the Himalayan and peninsular rivers. So, now let us move for the water usage. So, we will be using the water for different purpose and all. And these are divided into two ways, inflows and outflows. If you open page number 61, you can see a picture there, water cycle. Already in 9th standard also you people have discussed regarding hydrological cycle. That is nothing but the water cycle. You can see that evaporation, transpiration, transportation, condensation, precipitation, runoff, and groundwater. In the same way, here also inflows means how the water from the atmosphere reaching to the surface of the earth is called as inflows. And from there, some of the water will be penetrates into the ground. So the ground absorbs the water and also flows in the form of a river, streams, lakes, all those things. That is all called as inflows. And outflows is the water that how it is again going into the atmosphere. That process is called as outflows, children. And in the outflows, the important process is evapotranspiration. So what is this? Evaporation and transpiration together is called as evapotranspiration. transpiration. So what is evaporation? Evaporation is turning of water into vapor. So it is called as evaporation. And what is transpiration? So we'll be living things give off the water into the atmosphere through the breathing process, and this is called as transpiration. Even plants also releases the water into the atmosphere, no children, and that process is called as transpiration. Both these process together is called as evapotranspiration. So the total amount of water added to the atmosphere from both evaporation and transpiration is called as evapotranspiration. So this is the main one of a outflow process. And the other outflow process, so how we will be using the water in different ways. After the outflow, again when we have the rain or something, we'll be securing the water, we'll be storing the water, and we'll be using for different other purpose. See that water as surface flows and ground water. Surface flow, when there is a rain, automatically the soil absorbs some amount of water, and the remaining water will be flowing in the form of rivers, streams, lakes, and so on, and that is called as a surface flow and groundwater. Next, water for agriculture. So we'll be using the water for agriculture for irrigation process, and also through bore wells also the water will be taken out and will be using for the agriculture process. And water used for domestic purpose and for animals. This is the common thing what we are doing every day. We'll be using the water for our domestic activities like washing, cleaning, bathing, cooking. For different purpose we'll use the water. And also for animals, for cleaning of the animals, for the drinking water for the animals, for different purpose we'll be using the water. And water for industrial use. So even industries also requires a lot of amount of water to do the process of the production. For that purpose, lot of water is required for the manufacturing of the product, and also for the cleaning purpose of the industrial equipments and the floor, whatever it is. So lot of water is required here. So all this process is completely comes under the usage of water. So without water we can't lead our life. So this is the main thing what we can see here. So water is very important resource. So in this video, what we have discussed, children, we discussed regarding the two types of river systems, Himalayan rivers and peninsular rivers. In Himalayan rivers, we discussed about three river systems. What are those? Indus system, Ganga system, and Brahmaputra system. And we discussed regarding peninsular rivers. In the peninsular rivers, east flowing rivers and west flowing rivers. What are the east flowing rivers? Godavari, Krishna, Mahanadi, Kaveri. These four are the east flowing rivers. And west flowing rivers are Narmada and Tapati or Tapi. These are the west flowing rivers, and we discussed regarding the water usage. Understand, children? And this is regarding the some part of the lesson, and remaining lesson will be continuing in next video, and the assignment will be posted separately. And one more information, children, in these videos, actually in the online classes we are very backward, but in the normal classes in school we are very forward. Almost 6 to 7 lessons difference is there. We have almost completed more than 6 lessons in the class. So if it is possible for you, if you can attend the classes, you can attend it. Thank you. Meet you in next video, children.